أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لما تقولون ما لا تفعلون صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. So, for those of you who understood the speech of Sayyid Kashmiri, a lot of it was actually linked with a lot of the topics that I wanted to talk about today. So, I'm happy that he spoke about some of these points, about where you are getting your information from, and seeing who the speakers are, and who is the one talking, and what are the sources of information, things that we have kind of touched upon already during these nights. Yesterday, we spoke about the language of the Quran. We said that when the Quran wants to make a transformation in the community, it wants to bring a transformational change in the society, in the community, it is going to have to use language. And that's one of the qualities and the tools that distinguishes humans from other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fact that we can speak our mind, we have certain ideas and thoughts, and we can communicate them with each other. And language is a very powerful tool at our disposal. That's why we have so many narrations as well, speaking about the controlling of one's tongue, how you use your tongue, and when and what to say in one context. In the modern world that we live in, under the paradigm of modernity, a very significant change took place. In the pre-modern world, the value was given to silence more than speaking. So for example, we have actually a very interesting tradition from Lady Fatimah al-Zahra alayha salam, who says, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw yaskut." That anyone who believes in Allah and the Day of Judgment, then either they should speak good, say good things, or remain quiet, or remain silent. Silence was seen as the better thing to do. But in the modern world, a couple of things happened. One is that because everything became centered on us, on the individual, naturally that played a role in giving more encouragement to people speaking all the time. And if you look at these sort of tools that were created in the last 20, 25 years, the social media tools, they all have to do with giving you some ability to express yourself, to express your thoughts, express your ideas, express your opinions, share whatever on earth you're doing, putting up pictures of food, for example, or talking about anything, even personal matters. These are all tools that have given you the ability to just say whatever on earth you want and make it public for the entire world to see. I wish there was an extra time to talk about the ethics of technology as well. That's a very interesting topic as well. All of these technologies, there are certain ideologies behind them. No technology, I believe, is neutral. But anyways, that's for a different time. So the modern world actually praises and sees merit in talking more so than staying quiet. This is the sort of paradigm that we live in. So the more you talk, the more superior you are. You have something to say about every topic. The second thing that happened in modernity is obviously the introduction of democracy. Democracy not just as a political system, but as a value. So for example, even within schools, there's a lot of talk about democratic values that you must promote and discuss and encourage. And what that really translates into is that everyone has the right to say and give their opinion. Doesn't matter what credibility they have, what status they have in society, how much knowledge they actually have. Everyone has the right to express their opinion. In the traditional societies, this was definitely not the case, right? Not everybody had the right to say whatever on earth they wanted. There has to be some hierarchy. some criteria. Not everybody can come and say anything. But when you live in a paradigm where everyone shares the same value, democratic value, and everybody has access to all the knowledge, everyone should have free access to everything, and everyone should have access to contribute and share their ideas and thoughts, then obviously you get the mess that you kind of see on Twitter, for example, right? It's a big chaos on Twitter. Sometimes you're like, what on earth is this tool? By the way, I used to be a digital marketer like 15 years ago, right? And we used to use Twitter for social media campaign. It was just an innocent website about sharing news. I come back from Qom and I went on it and I was like, what on earth is going on? Is this become a trash platform for youngsters to just go and bash each other and write Twitter threads? Like, that was not even the purpose of the of the tool. But it's become this very profane and nonsense app where everyone just, there's fights happening on Twitter, for God's sake. Why are you fighting on Twitter, right? This group against this group and that group against this group. But this is all a product of a culture where talking and just saying whatever on earth you want is praised. The third thing is the idea in modernity that quantity is prioritized over quality, right? So the more you do things, the more things you do and say and produce, that has value over quality. So, for example, there's a very famous statement, content is king. This is the tool, this is the sort of motto that we used to have when we used to market our companies. As I said, I was a digital marketer. So everything, anytime I wanted to give a solution to a client, I would say, hey, get a blog running and start just publishing stuff. And we used to use these content generators. I mean, now you have AI. We didn't have ChatGPT back then. We would actually have to write the article and then spin the article. It's called article spinning. We'll spin the article. You had these tools that you could do it. Why? Because content is king. The more you push out, the more sort of authority you gain. That's actually how we would increase the value of the clients on the internet. You get a more authoritative status in the online world. So this is the paradigm that we live in. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says that, hey, I don't care about how many a'mal you do, how many things you do. I care about who has the ahsanu amala, who has the better quality of deeds. So when you are living in this context, and yesterday we talked about how speech and speaking and conversation and kalam is so important in growing ourselves and the community, then we need to go a little bit further and talk about how the Quran actually discusses emotional intelligence and speaking. What is emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence is the sort of self-awareness and self-regulation that each one of us has, and basically knowing when to say what and to who. It sounds easy, but it's not that easy. Because firstly, self-awareness is very tough. I mean, you have to really train yourself to get a complete awareness about yourself. Where do I actually stand? Who am I even? Right? When we go on, sometimes on these social media apps, and we share something about anything, let's say religion, just take a moment, step back, and just kind of question yourself, like, who am I? Why am I even talking about this topic? Why do I have to say anything about this subject? Who are you? But we don't have a lot of self-awareness. That's one thing. Second thing we don't have is we don't have a lot of self-regulation. And that is that when somebody says something that we disagree with, for example, or we don't like, what is the control that we have on our emotions? What are we gonna blurt out and say when we don't like something that we hear? Okay? And if your emotional intelligence is poor and weak, your language is going to be weak, and this is one of the reasons why our communities don't actually grow. As a community, our emotional intelligence, unfortunately, is really weak, because we're not really thinking from the perspective of actually building one another. So we are very quick and hasty to lose control over our emotions and just blurt anything. And if it means that it's going to cause more disunity, more grudges between the brothers or between the sisters, and more conflicts, then so be it. I don't really care. I'm in my own world. I do my own thing. And that's something the Quran is going to be completely against. So when we are speaking, there are couple of things that we need to keep in mind. All of these are going to be from the Quran, but I just want to define the overall framework. Speaking has a couple of dimensions that you can actually look at it from. Okay, so all this stuff that I'm saying right now, you can actually take my speech and analyze it from different angles, different perspectives. Number one is actually the content itself. What on earth is even being said? So when you or I or anyone speaks, what are we even saying? The basic requirement for that, according to the Quran, is that it must be the truth. Whatever you are saying, you must speak the truth. When I was studying in the Hawza, good thing Sayyid Kashmiri said, bring a Hawza student who studied 9-10 years. So I just about made the criteria. Something would really frustrate me when my teachers would teach the class. Sometimes in Bahth al-Kharij, in Dars al-Kharij, this was very common, but even in other classes, where they always would say and speak by saying shayad, perhaps. La'alla, maybe this is what this means. Maybe this is what this scholar is saying. Maybe this is what Shahid Awwal meant over here. And someone coming from the West where everything is like, no, this is proven 100% correct. It was very difficult for me to adjust to that language. What do you mean? Why do you keep saying maybe? Maybe this is what Fala Sheikh Tusi meant over here. Maybe this is a culture that is actually instilling the culture of humility. Okay? That, hey, you don't always have to claim certainty on things. Sometimes it's okay to give a little bit room of doubt. Sometimes it's okay. Don't always be all 100% so dogmatic on everything. Because when you become like that, and one day somebody comes and tells you a different opinion, you're gonna just, it's gonna be a whole crash of your entire worldview, possibly. And also, when you are not 100% sure, you should not be claiming things in a way, and you should not be speaking in a way where it sounds like to the speaker that you are 100% sure. So even in my musibah, sometimes you can hear me, I say, perhaps this is what happened. Because sometimes what happens in the maqtal, you have one instance mentioned, and then you have a second instance mentioned. You say, this companion left the camp, and then the next line says, and he was killed by, masalan, this soldier. So in the middle, I'm kind of maybe imagining what happened. Maybe he went to the battlefield and he was struck. So for me to come and say that is exactly what happened, and the audience starts to understand that, hey, he's narrating a historical fact here, then I'm doing a disservice to all of you, and my content is not correct. I must, yes, there is poetic license that is given, but I'm not doing poetry here. For me, I'm narrating the events. The poet has poetic license. I'm not a poet. So I have to make sure whatever I'm uttering doesn't come across as truth if there is a chance of it not being truth. So number one thing, brothers and sisters, whenever we speak, whatever you say and whatever you even post, number one thing is it the truth or not? If you hear a rumor about someone, I'll tell you something the mistake I made. Just recently, there's some tweet came out that Chomsky died. Okay, and it was shared by one of the Dawah people here in England. And I was in a rush to share it as well. And I shared it and I figured out it was not correct. Right? All of these things, guys, I can make the same mistakes. Just because I'm preaching doesn't mean I'm not prone to these. I can make the same mistakes. So it was wrong, and I'm like, oh my God, people just saw this Instagram story, I better delete it. But why did I rush? Why did I want to be the first person to share that news to my feed? I don't know if he's alive or not. I didn't follow the news, but he didn't die. It was just a tweet somebody had shared, and it was false. But I shared it with a lot of certainty. That's number one. Second thing we need to look at when it comes to speech is, where are we saying that speech? As you all know, not every single matter of truth actually needs to be said at every single situation. There are certain truths that you don't always have to express. There are times and certain places for you to express those. For example, every Muharram or right before Muharram, the infamous debate about tatbir starts. Brothers and sisters, no one's gonna get convinced by your arguments for or against tatbir right in the middle of, smack in the middle of Muharram. It's an emotional time. So you may be saying the truth, whichever camp you're on, but listen, I guarantee you're not convincing anyone in the middle of those 10 days. People that have a belief could care less about your position in the middle, like the people have been preparing to do it for the whole year. And you're going to tell them, don't do it. It's the wrong time to say and have this discussion. So the place of what you're talking about. So truth is important to say the truth, but not, you should know, have the intelligence and know when to say it. You have the entire year to talk about your positions and discuss them. If this topic is even that high priority, it is not. Until now, in my lectures, you should have realized there are far more important and more serious issues to talk about than this. But I was just an example, right? It's something that people do every year. Number 3 is the tone, right? When you're speaking, so you can be speaking the truth and you can be speaking in the right place, but your tone, brothers and sisters, if you are angry, then express your anger. If you are sad, express your sad. Some people cannot express a tone. So sometimes, this usually happens between husbands and wives, right? The wife wants to communicate something, she's saying the truth, she's saying it at the right time, but her tones makes the husband feel like, okay, she's not that serious about it. But no, he's probably very serious about it. So wives, women, ladies, express your tone in a way so the man understands. Miskeen, he doesn't understand your tone language. He needs to know clearly, are you being serious? Are you being sarcastic? Are you joking? Express yourself. Same with the brothers. Sometimes the brothers also don't have tones. If you're happy, make it happy. Make the tone happy. Okay? So these are the 3. I have to go a little bit quicker tonight, obviously, because my time is short. The 4th thing is the framework in which you're saying it. So it could be the truth, your tone is amazing, and your, what was the second one? Your place of speech is also okay. But if I am presenting to this crowd, it's going to sound very different to if you watch, for example, my presentation that I've given in a conference, right? Because the language I want to start using in a presentation in a conference, in an academic conference, is going to be heavy with jargon. Now I'm scared if the word jargon is even understood. Jargon means technical terms. But if I'm speaking here in a crowd where it's a mixed crowd, different ages, then I need to speak in a way where at least the majority kind of understands what I'm talking about. There's no point otherwise. Also, the length. Sometimes in our centers, this is usually in the India-Pakistani, Indo-Pak centers, some people don't have, the poets sometimes don't have emotional intelligence that, hey, when they're reading, maybe people just want to listen to you for 10 minutes. But the guy is thinking he's just on a next level and he's going to read for 50 minutes. Emotional intelligence. Know when to wrap up your speech, know when to wrap up your poetry, and get off. Sometimes you can tell by the reactions. Right now, looks good. So the framework in which you're presenting your content, even if it is the truth, you need to know. So look guys, these are all part of emotional intelligence. Now, does the Quran speak about all of these dimensions? Yes, 100%. And it teaches you how to speak to one another. Sometimes we speak to our parents the same way we speak to our friends. No. Your friend, you speak in a different way. Your parents, you speak in a different way. Your wife or husband, you speak in a different way. With your children, you should speak in a different way. Even within friends, you have different levels. You don't speak to all the friends in the same way. You shouldn't. You should have enough intelligence about your circle of friends. Which friend do I speak with about what and when? Different people, different humans may be at different levels. You may be very religious and you may have very high expectations, but your friend may be not at that level yet. But if you speak to them as if you're speaking to people at your level, you're going to maybe break them down more. You're not really helping them. The Quran talks about all of these. Let me quote some ayat. At least 9 adjectives, qualities of speech have been mentioned in the Quran. Look guys, that's how important the whole phenomenon of speaking is. Quran describes qawl in 9 different ways, and subhanallah, every single description is connected to the context that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. Let me give you the examples. When it comes to speaking with orphans, children who don't have parents, and you are acting as a guardian for them, and you have to deal with, let's say, their inheritance, their money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلْيَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. Speak to them in a way which is just. Meaning when you're handling their money, inheritance, don't speak to them in a way where they start to fear you. That maybe this man or this woman is going to take my inheritance and this child doesn't have any parents. You're their guardian. قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. Speak to these children, these orphans, in a just manner. Okay. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the wahi, which is a qawl, which is kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah describes it in the Quran as qawlan thaqila. He tells the Prophet in Surah Muzammil, which is second surah, Inna sanulki alayka qawlan thaqila. O Prophet, I'm telling you right now, what we are about to reveal to you over the span of the next 2 decades is going to be a very heavy qawl. This could be literal, or it could be metaphor as well. Literal, because we have riwayat that say that when the wahi would come, it will be a physical pressure on the Prophet ﷺ. And it could be a metaphor as well, because the rest of the ayah talks about the serious responsibility that the Prophet will have on his shoulders, that he has to present this message to the people. A heavy qawl. When it comes to talking to the munafiqeen and the kuffar, Allah says, وَقُلْ لَهُمْ فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ قَوْلًا بَلِيغًا. You must speak to them in an eloquent way which actually affects them in their heart. Don't speak to them in a way that is ineffective. Baligh, like eloquent. Nahjul balagha. Speak to them in an eloquent manner, where it actually transforms them, changes them, attracts them, brings them towards what you're saying. Don't speak to them in a boring way or in an unattractive way. Speak to them in a way where they are impressed. Surah Al-Ahzab, even though this ayah is revealed for the wives of the Prophet, but the fuqaha took this ayah as evidence that women can speak to men. But look at how the Quran describes how women should speak to men. And the opposite as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَقُلْنَا قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. O wives of the Prophet, you can speak to the companions of the Prophet, they're males, it's okay. But فَلَا تَخْدَعْنَا بِالْقَوْلِ. But don't be seductive in your voices. Just because Allah is allowing you to speak to them, don't be seductive and soften your voice and act all flirtatious with them. Don't do that. Because the one that has a disease in their heart, they might do something haram. So Allah didn't come and say, okay, well, you don't talk to the men. He didn't say that because that's not realistic. They're living in that society. They're living in that community. Medina is a small city. They're all neighbors. They all come out of the house, they see each other. Or for example, they have family members. So Allah gives a guideline. Allah says, hey, speak to them, but speak to them qawlan ma'rufa, in a dignified manner. In a dignified and a manner that is well accepted and appreciated in society, where people cannot accuse you. Don't come in a situation where people might judge you negatively or become suspicious of you. Speak in a normal manner. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, you may have poor people begging, but you genuinely may not have anything to give them. Correct? Sometimes you don't have anything to give. How do you react to the needy in that situation? Should you just, push them off, be angry at them and just tell them to go away? Sometimes I've seen people do that, react that way. Because sometimes the needy people, they're desperate, so they will attach to you and beg you. And sometimes people react very harshly. But look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, talk to them qawlan maysura. maysura. Speak to them in a gentle and a simple manner. They are not usually complicated people. They might not even know why you're not giving them any money. But speak to them and react to them in a gentle manner. Don't be harsh with them. Just because you may find it to be annoying and frustrating, but emotional intelligence means you empathize, you understand the desperation that the person might be in. How would you want people to react to you if you were in that situation? So Allah says, hey, speak to them in a simple manner. A sixth way that Allah describes qawl is with your parents. Do not say uff to your parents. وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا, in a dignified manner. Guys, brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every single adjective is different from one another. And these are different surahs. Every single adjective is different. Karima, Sadida, Layyina, we're going to talk about it. Yasira, Ma'rufa, Baligha. But each of them is linked with the description of who you are talking to. The Quran is trying to increase your emotional intelligence. Know who you're talking to and learn how to speak to one another in an intelligent way. Because when you speak with an emotional intelligence, that's how you grow. That's how you build. If you use the wrong way of speaking, what do? You destroy. You break things. If I speak to my parents with qawlan azima or qawlan thaqila, that's it, I've destroyed my relationship with my parents. If I talk to, for example, the na-mahram with qawlan layyina, in a lenient, seductive voice, I've destroyed my relationship with in the community. I've damaged my family relationships. I've damaged my chastity. Every single quality is with a specific context. Karima, have respect for your parents. There's another one, qawlan azima, for those who made lies against the Prophet and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last one is also very important for all of us. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. Good. When the ignorant people are talking, there comes a point where should you say to them? قَالُوا سَلَامًا. Yalla, iltimas dua. Don't keep dragging the conversation with a jahil person. Even Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, I cannot win a battle with a jahil person. There's no point. Just leave it. But some of us, because of the world and the paradigm I described initially, it's a culture that pushes talking. We always want to have the last word. So you keep going on and on and on, and you go on Discord or you go on Twitter and you go on these Facebook, and you see just discussions happening back and forth over the most petty, useless topics, have no impact on your life, on your world, on your job, on your career, on your family, on your relationship with your friends, with your family, with your community. Nothing. It has no significance to your life. You're supposed to say qalu salama. It's hard to say that, by the way, because you have an ego. When you have an ego, you don't want to just let it go. You want to have the last word. But Allah is telling that the prophets would say qalu salama. The ones that have the haqq with them, even they would have to say yalla, iltimas du'a, fi amanillah. Look at how the Prophet invites the Ahlul Kitab in the earlier Madani period. The Prophet says, this is Surah Saba. He says, O Ahlul Kitab, who provides for you from the heavens and the earth? Say Allah. Now look at this. وَإِنَّا أَوْ إِيَّاكُمْ لَعَلَى هُدًى أَوْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Imagine the Holy Prophet comes over here right now, and he says to us, let's say, there's a certain message that he wants to preach to us, and we haven't heard of this message yet. And he comes to us and he says, follow this message. Either you're on the haqq or I'm on the haqq. A prophet saying that, it's almost like the prophet is casting a doubt that, maybe I might be wrong. How can the prophet speak like that? How can the prophet say, guys, I'm inviting you to a religion. Come, I might be right or you guys might be right. What? I thought you're supposed to have 100% certainty. No, but in the period of the da'wah, the initial invitation, when you want to attract people, your language, look at the language he's using. He's being open. He's giving an invite. He's saying, come. It's a new message. You've never heard of this message before. I don't want to sound so dogmatic to you. Prophet knows he's on the haqq. But he doesn't want to give an impression to the audience that he's being arrogant. Those Ahlul Kitab have been living in that region for centuries. It's their territory, it's their home. In Yemen, in Medina, the Jews, the Christians, they've been living there for centuries. So a new man is going to come and say, come. No, there's a way that he's going to invite them. He says, come, I have a message. Hear what I have to say. What's the worst that's going to happen? Either you're going to be right or I'm going to be right. You know, my time is up. I have a whole discussion on Surah Kahf. But I think if I expand on this, it will be too long. So what I'll do is I'll end with a final sort of point about kalam. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the ayah I quoted also in the beginning, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Why do you say things that you don't do? Why don't you practice what you preach? Or why don't you, why do you do things that are not in accordance with what you say and believe? So look, we're talking about dimensions of speech. We spoke about the place of speaking, how you speak, the tone of speaking, the framework of speaking. And now from an ethical perspective, the Quran is also mentioning us, because look, I can say all of the things. I can say the truth. I can say it with the right tone. I can say it in the right place. I can say it in the right framework. But there is still this one final thing. Do I myself as a person act on it or no? Am I just all talk? And brothers and sisters, these are scary ayat. People who don't practice what they preach, look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this group of people. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Kabura maqtan 'inda Allahi an taqulu ma la taf'alun. It is one of the most hateful things in the eyes of Allah that you say what you do not do. Maqtan. This word, something that is extremely hated in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want you to pay attention where else this word maqtan is used in the Quran. The first place it is used is for kufr. People who do kufr, Allah says that they are doing maqt. وَلَا يَزِيدُ الْكَافِرِينَ كُفْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ إِلَّا مَقْتًا. Their kufr only increases them in how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates their act. Number one. Number two is in jidal, meaning arguing and fighting over the ayat of God. So these are basically useless discussions and useless arguments over the signs of Allah and so on. This is a lengthy discussion. What is jadal and jidal? It's not even allowed during the Hajj and during Ihram. It's a whole discussion. But look at the third one. The third place where maqt is used is for zina. These are all horrible crimes. So zina, fornication, adultery. Allah says, إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَمَقْتًا وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. What an evil way, an evil pathway to take. Okay, zina, I can understand. Jidal in the ayat of Allah, I can understand. Kufr, I can understand. But Allah goes, hey, why don't you practice what you preach? Kabura maqtan 'inda Allah. This is also something from those things that Allah does not like. And unfortunately, we as a Muslim community have a big issue with this. As I said, we're in a culture where we love to talk. We love to say things. But what are we actually doing in practice? Are we, God forbid, becoming an instance of this ayah? Have we become an instance of this ayah? Where we talk a lot, all day. Just yesterday or a few days ago, I saw one of the speakers from England, well-known speakers. They put up a message that, they did some calculation that at least in London, or I think London or England, about 170 speeches and lectures are being given every night in the different centers. This is not including the house majalis, and this is not including the global Shia community. Every night, In Muharram, how many hundreds of thousands of lectures are being given? In Pakistan, imagine people from Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, every street has a lecture, correct? In every city, every village, hundreds of thousands of lectures given every night. But as a community, whether local, national, global, where are we actually going? This was one of the questions that really bothered me when I was studying. When people in Harvard or Yale or Oxford, they write 1-2 papers, it can change entire communities and entire paradigms. But we are presenting at least hundreds and thousands of lectures in the first 10 nights. But is anything significantly and systematically changing in our communities, within ourselves? Are we really growing? Yes, people do grow. I'm not saying nobody grows. There is a lot of benefit. But I'm saying as a system, where are we going? We're still living under a paradigm that is completely 180 degrees against our values and our paradigms. Just today was a simple example that speaking is a virtue. For in Islam, silence is a virtue. So this is the message for tonight. So I wanted to wrap this discussion up until lecture 6 about speaking, because language is very important. Half of the problems in our communities and our relationships with our families and friends is because of how we speak. We unfortunately struggle with this. It's a skill. You have to learn and get trained in it. It comes from experience as well. It's not like something you just know. You have to learn how to speak to each other. Tomorrow onwards, tomorrow I will talk about another topic from the Quran, which is chastity. And because my time is short, I won't explain why I chose that topic. Chastity and family life for the next 2 nights. And inshallah, we're slowly heading to the end of our 10 lecture series. And inshallah, tomorrow, as I said, we'll talk about ifa and haya and chastity, how the Quran introduces it and how it encourages and promotes it in the society. Tonight, we want to remember 2 shuhada, and they are from the children of Lady Zaynab, salamullah alayha. 2 kids, Aun and Muhammad. One of the kids, they say, is maybe from not the biological son of Zaynab, but at the end of the day, they are both from the house of Lady Zaynab, and they are known as the sons, Aun and Muhammad. Sallallahu alaykum ya ahla bayt al-nubuwa. Sallallahu alaykum ya ahla bayt al-nubuwa. ومعدن الرسالة ومحبط الوحي وخزان العلم ومنتهى الحلم صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله أيها الشهيد بكربلاء عطشانا صلى الله على قلب زينب الصبور وعلى لسانها الشكور. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, Imam Al-Hussein, and Lady Zaynab, salamullahi alayha. On the day of Ashura, many of the people, many of the companions could have said that I've lost my father in this battle, I've lost my brother in this battle, I've lost my children in this battle of Karbala. But brothers and sisters, Zaynab, salamullahi alayha, Ummul Masa'ib, she's the one that could have said, Ya Ashab, the enemies have taken all of these individuals away from me. This Ummul Masa'ib, Zaynab, was the one who saw her mother being disrespected in the city of Medina. Ummul Masa'ib, Zaynab was the one who saw her father being struck on the head. They say when Amirul Mu'mineen was being brought back to his house, he told his companions to leave him alone, let him walk alone to the house. They asked the Imam why. He says, I don't want Zaynab to see me in this state. The lion of Allah being assisted by his friends. Zaynab had to see her father in that state. Just a few years later, she saw her brother, Imam al-Mujtaba, poisoned in the city of Medina. When she came to Karbala, she brought her sons with her, Aun and Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, on the day of Ashura, when the Bani Hashim went out to fight, after all the companions were killed, the Bani Hashim began to go out and defend Abi Abdullah. Zaynab, she tells her sons Aun and Muhammad to go out and defend their Imam. Imagine these two young boys going out on the battlefield with their armor and their swords, on their horses, onto the battlefield. What type of love did they have for Abi Abdullah? They were not required to fight, brothers and sisters. It was their own will, their own love for Abi Abdullah. As they fought on the battlefield, the Maqatil say they were able to kill some of the soldiers, but the enemy surrounded the boys. They separated the two boys from each other. They ambushed them from behind. Both of the boys were brought down on the plains of Karbala. Imam al-Hussein rushes towards the plains of Karbala. He brings the two boys back to the tents. The women and the children are crying. They're weeping on the bodies of these two young boys. But Zaynab is nowhere to be seen. She does not mourn upon her children. She did not want Hussein, her brother, to feel the pain that perhaps because of me, Zaynab had to see more pain in her life. This Masa'ib. Zaynab, she knew she didn't want to hurt the feelings of her brother Imam al-Hussein. She did not mourn upon her children, brothers and sisters. But there came a time just a few moments later when Zaynab left her tent, when she climbed the heights of Zaynabiyya. What does she see from the heights of Zaynabiyya? What did she see? The love of her life, her brother. وَالشِّمْرُ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِكَ شِمْرُ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ, sitting on the chest of her brother Imam al-Hussein, beheading the Imam. The cry, the wail of Zaynab is heard. وَيْحَكُمْ يَا قَوْمَ أَمَا فِيكُمْ مُسْلِمٌ. Is there not even a single Muslim amongst your camp? Ya adu Allah. The cry of Zaynab was heard as they put the head of Imam al-Hussein on the spears. Wa Muhammadan wa Aliya wa Husayna. لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. بأبي أنتم وأمي وأهلي ومالي وأولادي وأسرتي يا آل رسول الله.